Hello, I'm just going to go over this packet now with you. So, this one here is our disclosure regarding real estate agency relationships. We have to go over this with everything we do. I discussed before in a small amount when we did the sale that there is a relationship that we have where I have to do everything, loyalty. So I have to have loyalty, I have to have compliance with the laws and the rules. I have to keep confidentiality for life. There is also doing anything that you ask, as in terms of our contract or required duties. These are all things that come under client. You become a client once we have a contract in place to perform a certain task, which this will put a contract in place to perform a particular task. However, we've been working under an assumed relationship for a while now because we have currently been still working on your project. There's also a client, which when we're not doing anything in particular, you're technically customer. You're technically a customer, under which customers have the obligation to receive honesty, loyalty, and confidentiality. So with most of these, like I put on here, that we may end up going dual agent, most leases are dual agencies. This is where we will procure the tenant for you. So because we're procuring the tenant for you, technically you have to lose a few of those things because we have to do the best interest of both parties, which means we have to make sure that both people are getting serviced in the most responsible, honest, and lawful way. This means, though, however, that you lose a little bit of doing the best benefit you. So a good example of this would be, say, for instance, the tenant wanted to negotiate that the rent was $750 and we'd had it for $800, and I know that you would take $750. Now, if they ask me what was the lowest that the landlord would take, I now fall under that one where if I tell them, I'm doing the wrong thing by you, but if I don't tell them, I'm doing the wrong thing by them. So there's a little bit lost, and it comes into a lot of the times where some of those questions are better not asked, some of those things we don't do, and we just try and keep everyone's best interest always in the transaction. On this here, down the bottom, we are designated agents. So this is where I think I explained it the first time when I met you both, that you always hire the broker, and then I am hired under the broker to assist you. Now we have an agency with 20 different agents in it. All of those other agents are not part of our deal. I hold confidentiality for you from all those other agents as well. So you are working just with myself and the broker. All other agents are not. The other part here is if it's not a designated agent, technically you're hiring every single person in the office, which could lead to a lot of the dual agency issues, which is why most brokerages are designated agency. And then, so what we'll have you do is sign here and date there. And I'll set all of this up for you under the digital signing. I would just like to go through this all with you so that it is all completed and you know exactly what is on there. This is our exclusive right to lease. So this is the rental contract. This is what the other people will sign. This is the one between you and I. which gives me the right to lease it on your behalf. So obviously we'll put the date in here for when we start this. It's a residential property. It's in the township of Mount Morris of Genesee, 5508 Keller Avenue, Mount Morris. This is if there was anything that was particularly being leased with it, like say we had blinds or any other things like that that we were including with it. That is not real property. So things that could be just lifted up, taken away, stuff like that. On the bottom here, this is what we've agreed to. We want to do at least 12 months, $750 a month of rent, which gives a security deposit of $1,125. This is the commission that we're going to do. So this is where you've agreed that you're going to pay my broker and subsequently me $750 of the leasing price once we have all the lease filled out by a tenant and they move in. As we go through, this is there. So the owner. So these are things which the commission could be paid if the owner refuses to lease when ready. We both know you're not going to do that because you definitely want to get it leased out. The owner refuses or is unwilling to complete a lease pursuant to the terms of a duly executed lease agreement. So this one here is if we have one and everything ready to go, and then technically you're like you pull the lease at the last moment. Now that one actually creates a bigger issue because there is actually a binding lease in that part, and the tenant has rights to actually create a legal issue. The owner or anyone leases or rents the contract and receives a deposit within. I always put 0 because honestly, if we do something wrong and you turn around and say, hey, I want to have someone else lease this for me, then I did something wrong and I don't feel like I should really turn around and take something from that. There's default here, so if there is a part where the default where you refuse to do it, I also put 0% on here, which is where we would have an opportunity to take any of the funds from failing to do that. So I don't do any of that part either, which is why that is 0. So this part here is if it was changed into an option to lease during the term on this contract. So an option is it's a lease with an option to purchase. Then it would still be paid as due, because an option to purchase still has a lease involved in it, but also has a sale as well at a determined time later in the future. Consideration negotiation. The owner and realtor acknowledge that they have negotiated consideration contracted hereunder between themselves, and that the commission to be paid by the owner in consideration for services by the realtor in consideration for the commission to be paid was not fixed, controlled. So this was basically where I didn't come up and tell you the average rental or the average charge that a broker charges for a rental is this much. The average, what I said to you was what I charge for a rental, which is what we are allowed to do. I'm allowed to have what my rental charge is, so long as it's not turned around and said this is a national average or this is what most realtors do. That is not allowed to be done. So this is the one where you agree that we can put it on the multiple listing services to find the tenant if we need. That would be a case where then we have other brokers who are trying to bring the buyer side, or the tenant side into this. You've agreed to put signs on there. I generally don't like to put signs in some of those areas, especially for leases, just because it it advertises a vacant property, and I don't like to generally advertise that a property is vacant. So lockbox, we already do and have a lockbox on there. That's so that other realtors can access it using a program that only realtors can access to be able to look through the house. So market, upon written acceptance of the terms of the offer or lease or equivalent, it shall not continue to market the property. So this is, once we put a tenant in there, we will stop marketing the property. Referral, so the owner agrees to refer to the realtor broker all inquiries received concerning the property during the period. So that's saying that it doesn't matter what or how low it is, whatever it is, if we get an offer to rent the property out from someone, I share that with you. I don't hold back any of the leasing agreements. Anyone, just because it's not someone I picked or anything like that, they all have equal right. You have the right to see all of them. Heirs, this is just that it binds to all heirs and executors and things like that. Non-discrimination. With real estate, we're not allowed to discriminate for any of the 7 protected classes in Michigan. So we can't say no because of their race. We can't say no because of national origin, sex, marital status, age, height, weight, or physical, mental handicap, or familiar status. So information, so the owner agrees to provide realtor or lease with all information required by law. Marketable title, this is just saying that you do have title and you are actually the owner and allowed to lease this property out. And yeah, so the last part of this contract shall be binding upon execution by owners or owners' agents and the realtor and broker. Contract cannot be cancelled or revoked only by mutual consent of both owner and broker. So we have to both mutually agree to terminate the contract before such time as it would naturally end. On here, I want to point out that it says it has social security number on there. That's not going to happen. We're not putting social security on a form. It's not required. This is the form that I fill out to put into the details on the multiple listing service, which all realtors get to see. It is also what then filters through so that the property is then on Zillow, Realtor, Homes.com, and quite a lot of others. We're actually hoping that the couple of people I know that we won't even have to bother putting it up there, that we've just got someone to go straight in there. However, I'm not going to hold back on this either, though. We're going to be putting this up as soon as it can so that it's out there ready for people, so that we can so we can have someone in there straight away. We want to do our due diligence and check on the people and make sure that they're the right fit for the house, but we also don't want to just be sitting on it and not putting it out there waiting for someone. So you'll be able to check through this. This is all details about the property, so when they get to see it, it'll show what's in there. So the heating source, natural gas, it has forced air heating. So this one here, I've still got to measure some of these. This form here will actually then be done digitally. So what we have here is the signatures on file, the same as what we did when we listed properties. And this is then, I basically redo all of this back into a digital format, which just straight gets uploaded. Okay, and that's the green one. We do not have any green things in this property yet currently. This one here is actually the start of our residential lease. So this one is the lease. This is the one that I like to use just because it begins extremely straightforward. and it has a lot of stuff directly on the first page, which really saves a lot of time and everything. So we've got when the lease starts. So this is our lease starting time. Then we have commencement date and expiration date. So the first thing it does is it puts in is when the whole document was entered into. Now the lease commencement date can be several days after that. And then expiration date. We definitely always want to, I always like the idea of going at least a year, but we can later on, if need be for certain things, look at smaller dates, but a year is definitely what we want to look at. We have, so the landlord, that will be your details, and the tenants will be under here. The property address will be there, and occupants, this is for anyone under the age of 18. Now you cannot stipulate the amount of kids in or children who are allowed, because in the 7 protected classes you are not allowed to discriminate based on age. So you are not allowed any longer to determine how many kids can be in a property, how many adults can be in a property. You are only allowed to have it list people who are on there who are who are under the age of 18, and that is purely because everyone over the age of 18 is legally required to sign the legal document, and anyone under the age of 18 is actually not allowed to sign a legal document. We have our rental amount here when it's due. So a lot of the times there'll be a proration for the first part of the month, because most people don't move in on the first of the month. And then, so we got here tenant address for notices and landlord's address for notices. We will have your address on there. However, we will also make sure that they are sending stuff for me. Because that's the official notices. So anything that has to be there, they have to be able to get a hold of you as a landlord as well. So tenants acknowledge the receipt of 2 copies of the move-in check sheet that I will go over a little bit later, that is required as part of the security deposit law. So the term, this is the lease of the term, which then points back to it on the commencement date and ends on the expiration date set above, and shall only be occupied solely by the tenants and occupants named above in the previous page. Possession will be provided only after the first month's rent and security deposits have been paid, so they do not get possession before they've actually handed over the check. If tenants do not take possession on the day it is provided, and if the day the tenants has not notified landlord in writing that he or she will take possession on a later date, landlord may presume conclusively the tenants have abandoned the premises. This is written in there because what if they turn around and this is the date that they can move in there, then you go past and 5 days later they still haven't moved in. You don't want an empty place. You can start then the proceedings that they've abandoned it, and you can actually start the rental process again. You have to be careful with that one, because they have not moved anything in, which means they could come back with a lease and turn around and say that. Then you would, if they tried to move back in, you might have an issue where you have to evict. However, if they haven't moved anything in, you have the abandonment law to hopefully make that so it's like, no, sorry, I released this out, and based on this your contract was null and void, and then they would have to take that to court outside of that without actually living in there. Little bits of minute details though. So in here we got the rent, so agrees to pay the landlord during the lease term the monthly rental amount paid advanced in each month, so it's for the month before, beginning with the second month calculated at move-in. So like we were saying, this would where it would prorate a little bit, so I would say they move in on the 15th. on the start, like they would be paying based on the first part that they're moving into, and then on the second month they would be capable for that. So see, first month's collected at move-in. So when they move in, they would collect the first part of the month. So notice and place of payment. So notice this is excluding the security deposit, shall be delivered via U.S. mail to the premises. So this is the notices to the tenants. Tenants shall deliver mail rental payments, other charges, late fees, and notices, including security deposits, communications, landlord notice above, or place landlord may designate from time to time in writing. So if you wanted it deposited into an account or anything like that, that has to be done in writing. And I do have a form for that. I do not think that I put that form in this one, and I will print it out for you. Application of the money from tenants. Money received by the landlord from tenants on or on his or her behalf shall be applied to the tenant's account in the following. So number one, this is to satisfy any late fees and any other fees owed by the tenant. 2, to maintain and repair costs chargeable to the tenant. 3, legal fees and court costs legally chargeable to the tenants, including costs incurred to cure the default. 4, outstanding utility bills, which are the responsibility of the tenants. 5, to deposits or portions thereof from the tenant. 6, to charges, fines, and assessments against landlord caused by the tenant. And then 7 is to the rent. What this is for is because a lot of the times before, someone would be late, and then there would be a late charge. You would have to possibly take them to court, to proceedings or whatever like that, and then they would pay at the last moment. And what would happen for a little while is they would turn around and go, well, my rent's $350. They would just pay $350, yet there's still $200 or $300 in fines. And then they were turning around and going, I paid the rent due. I shouldn't be able to be evicted for late payment now because the rent's due. What this does is it gives an order which puts the rent to be paid last out of money that's given, and puts, so that way still, if there is a it still counts as a non-payment of rent, because of the fact that the part of the money they've given goes to the other things first. We're at 22 minutes, so I'm going to take a small break and switch this to the number 2 video.